Ah, there you go.
Okay, perfect. So string intros. String, as we all know, is anything with text, so not numbers, because that's an integer. And it must be enclosed with quotation marks, just like if you would see it in a book. So like, you know, when someone's speaking in a book, it's like quotation marks. It's the same thing with strings. You can use double or single quotation marks. Either one works. And assign strings to a variable with an equal sign. So this is a good example of that. See this variable fruit1 is watermelon. That assigns the variable fruit1 to watermelon. So when we say console.log fruit1, the console will show us watermelon because we've assigned that string to the variable fruit1. How many characters are in the word watermelon? So today we're going to get through something called like string length, which is an operator that counts the number of characters in a string, and then that value is an integer that you can then manipulate for things. So the length property returns the value of a string, and you have to write dot length after the variable. So variable fruit is watermelon. Remember that? So we have our fruit is watermelon. By saying fruit dot length, we say, okay, what is the length of the string that is this variable? So what is the length of watermelon? And it counts the letters. So watermelon. And there's 10. So there's 10 different characters within the variable string, which then gives us the value 10. This number 10 is an integer. So this is a string. This is an integer. Two different data types. You can also just would see it in like code this way. So variable fruit, watermelon, variable word length equals fruit dot length, console.log word length. Yes, so we have two different variables, fruit and word length. This one is an integer, this one is a string. Yes? What's the difference between a string and an integer? So a string is like words, so it's text. An integer cannot be numbers. An integer cannot be letters. It cannot be letters. So we specifically use integer when referring to numbers because it allows us to use mathematical operators. So like plus, minus, equals, multiplication, all that stuff. So we need to use integer when talking about those because you can't like multiply strings because you can't like multiply words together. So by using integer, we allow ourselves to use mathematical operators. If you want to use a number because it's like part of a story, then you would use it as like a string. So like all numbers can be strings, but words cannot be integers, basically. There was another question, let me answer. So is 10 going to be different from 10? Yeah, so quotation marks 10 is a string, but 10 by itself is an integer. And therefore, because it's an integer, we can perform mathematical operations on it. So yes, it is different. Good job. The different string methods serve different purposes. So access method through variable dot method. So here are two like variable methods. Index of returns the index of method returns the index position of the first occurrence of a specified text in a string. So example, say I have the word watermelon. Yes? Or no, let's use this example because it's right here. Say I have the word hello. If I said like index of E, it would give me 1. Yes? Because it goes to like the first instance of the character sets that's in here, and then it finds that and it gives you the index. One important thing to note, when you want to do indexes, it doesn't start at 1. So it counts all of the characters like this, but it doesn't start at 1. So it would assign all the values, but it goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you might say, oh, there's 5 letters, characters in the string hello, but the computer starts at 0. So the computer would say H is at the position 0. E is at the position 1. So always subtract 1. Yeah? The word that you want to find the index of goes inside the parentheses, and 2 uppercase converts the text to uppercase. So basically 2 uppercase is basically just like the caps lock button on your computer. That's what that means. I saw there was a question. I'll answer that in 2 seconds. Variable string, I like to sing. Yeah, so we have a variable str. So the variable is called str. The variable is I like to sing. It's a string variable. Variable position, string index of like console.log position 2. In this case, it looks like it's giving it different words. Why it says 2 is unknown to me because the output should be 1. Java and JavaScript are the same is in the sense that they start from 0. So you don't start counting at 1, you start counting at 0. So 2 is actually incorrect here. But, yes, yeah, no, it starts at 0. I'm not going crazy. Yes. So.
Oh, I think it's because there's a space. 0, 1, 2.
I don't even know because it says index of like, I've never seen being like indexes of words before and it like counting words.
Yeah, I think that starts at index 2.
I don't even know.
Yeah, because the I is 0.
1,
Is 1.
yeah, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the period would be 8. Yeah, okay. So in this case, we're counting words. Spaces do count. Spaces do count when you're talking about like a sentence like that because it will go through. Let's see. What's index? Index is basically just like the places of the word. So like, it's like if you were to like number the letters off. So like 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The index is like the number that the letter corresponds to if you were to like number them off starting at 0. Variable text, hello. Console.log text to uppercase. So see our built-in function to uppercase. Basically just like if I typed it with caps lock. Yeah? Arrays. Arrays are used to store multiple values in a single variable. Arrays are tricky, so if there's questions, please ask them. The values are closed with square brackets. You can't use circle brackets. You have to use square brackets. Array index numbers start from 0. Yeah, see, I'm not going crazy. Array index numbers start from 0. Everything starts from 0. So even index of like specific words, it starts from 0. There's no different thing. The first array element is 0. The second one is 1, all the way to the length of the array minus 1. This is true for even if you're just asking for the length of one string, like one single word. It's true. Access array elements by referring to an index number. So say it's like you're going to like a library. Does anyone know like the Dewey Decimal System, or am I just like really old-fashioned? Where like you would go to a library and you would say, okay, I want Charlotte's Web. And Charlotte's Web on the barcode for the library, they identify it by like a specific number. Well, that's basically like the same thing here. So I have all of these different items. Well, I want to categorize them by numbers so I can know how to find them from the specific numbers. So in this case, we have variable comic. Yes, so Spider-Man, Iron Man, Deadpool. Well, say I want to access Spider-Man. Well, that's index 0, so I have to go find index 0. I want Deadpool. Well, that's index 2, so I want to go find index 2. Spider-Man is assigned the variable favorite because the index number for Spider-Man is 0, the first array element in the comic array. So in this case, variable comic, array of different comic books. Yes? So I like to think when you're using array, it's not like one specific variable, it's more like category of all of the variables here. And then my variable favorite is comic, and then whatever comic is at index 0. And I can change this around. I can change these around. But whatever comic is at the index of 0, that's my favorite. So like if I have a different favorite comic, I can change them around. So whichever one's at 0 is my favorite. And then the console.log favorite, so we print out the variable favorite, and it prints out Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's at index 0. But if I were to change this list around and I put Deadpool at 0, then it would print out Deadpool. Length property returns the number of array elements. So dot length after a variable. The length property is always one more than the highest array of the index. Constructor property runs an arrays constructor function, dot constructor after the variable, used to check if the variable is an array. I don't like those explanations, so I'm going to try and explain them the best I can. So the length of fruit is 4. The highest array index is 3. We know this because we start from 0. So banana is 0, orange is 1, apple is 2, mango is 3. Therefore, the highest array index is 3. The length of the list is 4 because there's 4 different elements in the array, and the computer knows that. But the highest, like indexes start at 0, but like this is confusing for me because I'm 99% sure that lengths also start at 0. So let me check that. Hold up. Because I don't want to be saying wrong information. This is, ooh, okay. So this is the whole like banana, orange, apple, mango. So the length should be 3 because lengths start at 0. Arrays start at 0, lengths start at 0, indexes start at 0. Yes, everything starts at 0. This is a typo. This is a typo. So the output function array variable animals equals cat, dog, penguin. Animals dot constructor function array. So like this just checks if it's like an array. Like that's all this does. Animals dot constructor just checks if it's an array. But variable animals, cat, dog, penguin, that just it just checks that it's an array. Yeah, it's not checking for length. It's just checking that it is an array. Right? So constructor just checks like what type of thing it is, and then it says what type of thing it is. Okay, convert elements into a string. So join, remember how we had like our methods like dot length and like to all uppercase? Join is another one of those. So join method joins all arrays joins all array elements into a string. So it takes all of the array elements and puts them into a string. Yes? So I like cannot. How do I? Okay. Yes, perfect. Sorry. So see the whole like this is a good example of this. So join, if we use join and we like add a exclamation point, it just adds an exclamation point to the end of each thing. Why is there not an exclamation point after mango? There should be. There should be one. Oh no, sorry. There should not be one because it puts it in between each element. So it doesn't put it after each element, it puts it in between each element. So it uses them to like join them together basically. Remember how like concatenated statements, how we have plus signs to join them together? Well, it's basically like saying that, but you know, it just puts a character, whatever character you want. Pop removes the last element from an array. So, and push adds a new element to the end of an array. So these are just like little shortcuts that you can do when you want to modify an array on the fly. So there's a lot of these: pop, slice, unshift, shift, sort, toString, join, splice, map, reverse. These are very interesting. They have like different functions, but basically like shorthand ways that you can manipulate an array very easily. So let's go through this code. Variable fruits, banana, apple, mango. Fruits join, exclamation point. We add an exclamation point in between each one to join them together. Fruits.pop, we delete the last element. So we delete mango. So mango's gone now. Fruit push grape, add grape to the end. So banana, apple, grape. Fruits.join doesn't add it doesn't modify the array specifically. It modifies like the words of the array kind of, but like, well, no, it does modify the array. It's just hard to explain because like I would like if it was just like more in a format, because basically what it does, it puts like banana in its quotation marks, comma, exclamation point in its quotation marks. That's like basically what it does. I wish this was in array format. It's not. It's in just like regular words format. But anyway, you get the point. Question: if you were to use a constructor, what sort of output will it give? That depends. So if you're using an array, it will say like function array, because it's like, oh, that's an array. If you're using like mathematical functions, it would be like, oh, like what's a mathematical function? Math.random. That's one. Yes? It's one for Java, so it should be one for JavaScript. It would be like function like math.random, because it's like an inherent like function that it shows. So depending on what function you're using, it will give a different output. Object and dictionary. create a dictionary by creating an object with curly brackets. So inside the curly brackets, add key value pairs. There should be a comma after each pair. So these are very much like arrays in the sense that like we have different values separated by commas within brackets. Yes? Few things to note. Curly brackets for dictionaries, square brackets for arrays. Very important because the computer will like help decipher what you're trying to do based on the brackets, based on your syntax in general. So very important, use the correct brackets. Key dot value pairs is basically just like, it's kind of like how we establish a variable. So like, you know how we like a variable and name? So we say like variable y equals the value of the variable. It's very much like that. So we have like, well, like information that this is the actual information. So like, you know, it's like first name, last name, you know, it's very much like that. Luckily we have this use as a thing. Age 1, 54, 54. So it's always key value, key value. Dictionary 54, get the value through the key. So dictionary first name. So anything is, this is the key and this is the value. Yeah? So when calling up information in a dictionary, we say dictionary and then we say the key. Yeah? So if it's like a weird key like this, we can just put it in the like in the square brackets to call it. But if it's not, we have like dictionary dot first name because we have first name as like an established thing. There's some different syntax that goes along with these that you mostly just learn through experience, which is really rough. Dictionary age, let's use these examples. Dictionary age, so notice how we have like square brackets to classify what we want to talk about. We put the key, or we put the key here, and we put, oh no, this is to change it. Sorry, this is to change. If you want to change something, you need to put it like the same kind of syntax. So if you want to call it, it's dictionary and then square brackets with the like the key that you want to call. Yeah? So if I put dictionary last name, it would say Mendez. But if I want to change it, it's dictionary category of information equals the new information we want to put in. So dictionary age equals 10. This takes this 1, changes it to a 10. Dictionary last name Orlando. So then it takes the last name and it's now Orlando. Yes? So putting an equals new value after it changes information. Just putting the dictionary with the information key tells you the information. In order to change it, you have to put equals and then new information. Okay, so we have a fun Replit today. Okay guys, if we can all go to the Replit, I will meet you guys there. And we're gonna do something where we talk about like line numbers. So I'm gonna say the specific file I want you to go to within the Replit, and then I'm gonna say the line number that we're all gonna talk about. Yes? I think that's gonna be the best way to do this for now because you're gonna be seeing the same thing that I'm seeing. And I will answer questions.
Yeah.
So Christian did make this. And if you're looking at the Replit right now, just like I am, you're going to notice that there is an advanced script file and there's a script file. So it's going to say advanced script.js and script.js. I would like everyone to go into the script.js file. Yeah, so this is a Harry Potter quiz show. Or like a quiz game. It looks like a lot. He tailored it for his class, which is great. But there's going to be definitely some questions. So at this point, if you have any questions about the Replit, please just like shout them out because I know that there will be some. Okay, so let's go into the script.js file and I'm just going to go through it in like sections and kind of explain what each section does. Yes? Okay, script.js, lines 1 through 4. These just like are like variables, documents, stuff like that. They create method document element string. Yeah, so return the reference to the first object with specified value of the ID or name attribute. Yeah, so it's just calling references for things that establish our code later on. User information, username, house, response. These are all variables. Yes? So these are lines 7 and 8. So let username, house, response, all strings, all like user information stuff. Points is an integer variable, and because we're starting at 0 because it's a quiz game, we're starting it at 0. There's no quotation marks because it's an integer. Yes? And there's no quotation marks on any of these, even though they're strings, because it's the variable name, not the string itself. Lines 10 and 11 go to a button, which is an event listener. So basically what an event listener is, it just like sits there and listens and waits for something to happen, and then once something happens, it like executes its function. So he made the buttons event listeners so that when you click the buttons, it advances you to the next question. He used an arrow function here for that. And that's basically what that means. So lines 10 and 11 are like when you click the button like next, it takes you to the next question. Yeah? Lines 14, 15, and 16, basically like pressing enter, like takes you to like the next question, I think, if I remember correctly. Let me just like put it in like as like a little, yeah, so what he did is he put like key up, so like you can either click the button to take you to the next slide, or you can like press enter to take you to the next slide. So 14, 15, 16, pressing enter to take you to the next slide. 10 and 11, you have to click it to take you to the next slide. So he likes to do these things because it makes for a better program. So basically this whole thing, lines 20 to 54 is a function. Yes? And he did this because the entire function is like one question. Yeah, wait, let me check. I think it is. Yeah. So basically, he did this because it's one function for the question. And let's go through each section of it. So lines 20 to 23, that's the question itself. So Professor Snape, like that's the route you're taking. That's the question. Route get responses. So notice how this 20 to 54 is a function, but notice how it's like cascading if else statements. So like if this thing happens, then that happens. If it doesn't happen, then it goes to the next option. He does this because it's a multiple choice question. So if answer A is picked, then code executes. Else, it will see if answer B is picked. If answer B is picked, then it does something else. So that's basically what these like if-else cascading statements do. The first one is the question itself. So it shows like it creates an array called possible responses, and it says like stay silent, make up random answer, stand up for yourself, yell back at him. Those are your answers. Those are your like various different responses to the multiple choice question, and you put them in an array. So that's what it does. The first question, it takes all your answers, puts them in an array. That's what that does. 25 to 27, else, option, set attribute, hidden, response, input value. Don't worry about it. It basically just like sets the like stuff and makes it so it like functions kind of. Let response any, so like it just like it's like, oh, like we're gonna have an input value. The input value is gonna be like the click, like multiple choice thing. Or no, it's gonna be a type in A, B, or C. So 29 through 32, if response character code at less than 97, greater than 90, or like less than 97. Oh yeah, if it's less than 97 and it's greater than 99, or yeah, it's greater than 99. Basically it just means that like, oh, you didn't put a valid answer in. So it just says, please pick A, B, C, or D. Or A, B, C. A, B, or C. So that's what that means. This like 29 through 32 is basically just like, oh, you didn't put in like an acceptable response value that my computer can recognize. So like, I'm going to tell you to do that. That's what that means. So it looks for like the length of your input. And then it's like, oh, like, what's your deal there with that? Lines 34 through 40. Else, Lex selection, you picked $ response. So Christian likes to put the $ signs in because it's concatenated statements. I use plus signs because I think that's easier for me to identify. He uses $ signs. So that's how to do concatenated statements on the shorthand. $, curly bracket, the thing you want to stick in, other curly bracket. Yes, so that's all that means. It's a concatenated statement, but he likes to put it in that way. So else, let section you picked response. If response equals to A, then like if our response in here was A, you lose points because that wasn't the correct answer. Yes? So you start at 0, you lose points. So like see this, our points minus equals to 10. There was a question last week about how to like change points on the fly. That's how you do it. I have a points variable that we established earlier in the code, and then we change it here. Yeah? And then below that is like the response for the question. So like when you pick an answer, it gives you a response. So it like just says like, oh, concatenated statement, your selection. So it repeats your selection to yourself. Then /n, that's some syntax. It's new line. So it just moves it to like a new line, just kind of like a typewriter. So it just press enter. Professor Snape is annoyed that you ignored him. He deducts 10 points. New line. You have X amount of points. Concatenated statements, we insert points, the variable into points. Yes? And then input value is nothing because there's nothing to input. And then 42 to 4, so 42 onwards is basically the same thing, but for answers B and C. Yes? So we know here that B is the correct answer because you get points for that answer. C is the incorrect answer because you lose points for that answer. And then below that is like the responses that you get for when you like give those given answers. Geez, this is a lot of lines. I knew this. Why am I acting surprised? 56 function. So 56 to 65 function create. So this just creates a list of the responses. So it just like creates a list for them. And then the current response, it makes a list for them. Yeah. So it just creates a list for your responses. 69 to 75. Function all questions. If question get attribute name equals question 1, username input value, question set attribute name question 2. So basically, notice there, like if you put your name in that like name thing, that's basically what it does. It just like puts your name into like the question. Yes? So that's what it does. This is the same thing like question inner HTML, like what house are you in? So it just like takes the value, like the inner, like the input value of like what house you said you were in, and then puts you in that, like it like adds it to the story through concatenated statements. Else if name question equals 2, input value name question 3. So it's just like an else if, like all else fails situation here. Last chunk 82 to 85, let introduction. These are concatenated statements. So like this is like the introduction stuff, concatenated statement. Yes. And then 87 else if, it just like the else if scenario, like your name is question 3, and then Professor Snape, it like calls the function Professor Snape that gets responses, I think. I don't know. Oh no. Basically, because the question's about Professor Snape, so it calls the question function. Yes? He put an advanced JavaScript file in there, which I think is interesting. Personally, I wouldn't look at it right now. These are like really for his class. but I'm going to stop sharing really quick and then we can talk and like talk about questions. Okay? Yes.